All right, welcome to another episode of the All American Hoops podcast. This is episode 80. As per usual, I'm joined by my older brother, John Driscoll.
Hey, H, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Gotta be honest, this feels kind of weird just because obviously we're at our 6 o'clock time now. We used to do that for the first about 6 months. We did our pod 6 o'clock on Tuesdays. Now it's 6 o'clock on Thursday. We usually do 8 o'clock, but the final starting tonight, we didn't want to start too late. Yeah, I was texting about it in the chat earlier. I don't know how we did 6 o'clock for too long because I really don't like this time slot at all.
It's a weird feeling. I think I was still at my old job before we did the 6 o'clock time slot, and I don't know what we did afterwards. That it just feels like 8 o'clock makes more sense for us.
Well, yeah, because I get home from work at like 4:15, 4:30 usually. I can so I have time to go to I have time to go to the gym. I have time to eat dinner. Which is why our younger brother Matt Driscoll isn't here tonight. He dinner at the Driscoll house. He does his on Thursdays, as you guys have heard multiple times on the show before. So yeah, couldn't hop on tonight, but I'm also not just not in the best mood in general, just because like it is bringing back a lot of memories. We're doing the 6 o'clock time slot, and then also this time last year we were doing a draft on. What was it? It was we were drafting the best finals performances ever, and right before the Celtics were about to play in the finals. So yeah, vibes were immaculate this time last year, but now, which is, don't get me wrong, we're definitely excited for the finals because obviously we're big Pacer fans, and also it's not like we have a hatred towards the Thunder either. But like we were just hoping that our Celtics would be our hands. The wound is still pretty fresh, so yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but yeah, that's life though. But episode 80. So yeah, still no NBA players that ever wear 80, and no Mets players that ever wear 80. John, did you do any research ahead of time by any chance for a number 80, or do you know of any number 80s?
Yeah, just Victor Cruz was the first number that came to mind.
Yeah, yes,
member of our Giants fandom.
Absolutely, yeah. So he was the first one I thought of, and also there's definitely a couple more. One of them being Jerry Rice, who is debatably if you go through positions at each sport, I think if you can argue that he is debatably like the best player at his position of all time. You can talk Barry Bonds in the outfield, or you can talk Magic Johnson. Not really. That's pretty debatable at this point. You could talk MJ, the shooting guard, but I think that's Jerry Rice, the GOAT wide receiver. I think that's pretty undisputable. I think that's the least argued thing in sports, probably. And Chris Carter,
Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah, of course, yeah, him as well. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Chris Carter was number 80 as well. So, yeah, definitely lots of elite wide receivers that were the number 80. That's a very number. But yeah, next week we will be back to the basketball players wearing number 81. I don't know how many weeks. I don't know if there's an 82 though. So yeah, we only have a few more weeks left of basketball players wearing the big numbers. That's usually not.
The dates.
I'm looking forward to those too. That'll be 20 weeks from now, which. I'm very we've talked a little bit about it off the air, but I'm looking forward to episode 100 because I have some pretty good ideas for that. But we'll have to prepare for that a little more than usual weeks. But yeah, anyway, let's get the show started. So obviously the finals are starting tonight, but since it is the NBA, obviously there's always other drama off the court actions going on. So debatably the biggest news cycle of the week. I'm going to say even including the finals because I feel like the news segments have been talking more about this than the actual finals. That's the firing of Tom Thibodeau. So we haven't done a show since, but Saturday night the Indiana Pacers knocked out the Knicks in what ended the Knicks' magical run to the conference finals, their first since 2000. And obviously, and I said that to my Knick fan friends. Obviously, they should be very proud of their team and everything that they did. That being said, the front office / ownership, I think this was more ownership than front office that felt like they should turn the page. What was it? They felt like it was the end of it. That this was the furthest they were going to go with Tom Thibodeau, so they decided to move on. And I'm honestly 50-50 on the subject. There's pros and cons to each, but yeah, John, I was wondering if you we've talked about it since, but what are your thoughts on the overall situation a couple days later?
Yeah, I don't think I really agree that with the Knicks front office to fire Tom Thibodeau. I think, even though they probably exceeded expectations in most people's eyes. I don't think that. I just think.
Oh, you're muted. Hang on. I don't know if that was
an accident. Sorry. I think I had my work headset plugged in this whole time. I don't know if I was quiet, but I just think that the head coach is going to be the guy who doesn't get any credit when they win, and he's going to get all the blame when they lose. I don't think really Tom Thibodeau played a deciding factor in that series. Game one, you could argue. I'm not really sure what the coach is supposed to do when there's a blown lead of double digits in the last minute of the game. Now, do I think that the Knicks have an opportunity to get a better coach? Yeah, I think that there are other coaches out there that could essentially be better for what they're trying to build. But I thought Tom Thibodeau was a good coach. I know we all like to joke about how he ran his players into the ground, but it seemed like Brunson liked playing for him. I know him and Cat kind of butted heads a little bit, but he was just like an old-fashioned, like hard-nosed kind of coach who just, happened to be the guy that took the blame for what happened.
Yeah, and I was listening to I'll quote a couple people during the segment about the topic. Zach Lowe said that when moving on, like when you're trying to change things up for the team's identity, it's far easier to replace the coach than it is to replace the players, because everyone's talking about how the Knicks should trade Cat and get a couple pieces back. That's a far harder thing to do than just firing your coach and then hiring someone else, depending on what happens. Because obviously, like I've heard some people say, like, oh, just trade Cat for Durant. Far easier said than done. You have to get a third team involved, probably. Even if you want to say, like, oh, trade Cat for, like, I don't know, like if you want to say like a Lauri Markkanen and like a couple other pieces so you can become deeper. Again, far easier said than done, and I don't really know how much the question of Tom Thibodeau would like who would be the better option at this point. I know that the favorites came out right when he was fired. Johnny Bryant was one of the ones. He's the assistant coach of the Cavs now. He did coach the Knicks for a little bit, so he would be a great option. A couple of other ones came up. Mike Malone was one of the ones that was talked about, but he doesn't really come up on the odds. So that I'm assuming Vegas knows something that we don't. Like he probably just said, I don't know if he's come out and said, or if he's told like the most important people saying like I don't plan on coaching for a little bit, or I don't want to hop into like a high pressure situation right away, which would be very understandable. But I don't really know. If I don't, I'm certainly not blaming the Knicks for wanting to turn the page, and I know that Nick Wright said that he thinks that the Knicks made their decision to fire Tibbs, either during the regular season or like right before the playoffs, just because there's no way you could say that the Knicks underachieved this year. You could say that they underachieved a little bit in the regular season, which I wouldn't agree or disagree with. I will say, however, if you expected them to be a top 2 seed, the Cavs won 64 games and Celtics won 60 games. You really can't expect the Knicks to win. You can expect anyone to win 60 games. Honestly, winning 60 games is hard. But yeah, they ended up making the conference finals by beating the defending champs. Granted, a lot of things had to go their way in order for that to happen, but they executed down the line, and I do think that Tom Thibodeau deserves some type of credit for that.
Yeah, he definitely does, and I do think that it's going a little understated, his relationship with Cat. It didn't seem like they got along down the line. And maybe the Knicks, Cat has his limitations, but at the end of the day, he's still a relatively young player. I know he's probably pushing 30 now, but he's got a good chunk of years left. And, they made the decision to stick with him. Not that it was, that was the deciding factor, but definitely played a part in their decision. I've heard Jay Wright's name thrown out a few times. I'm not sure if it's just because of the Villanova connection or not. Mm-hmm. Jay Wright was at my office today, actually.
Was he now?
He was. I slept through my alarm and had to work from home to make early meetings, but I would have met Jay Wright and I would have asked him if he was going to take the Knicks job. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's a weird feeling for Knicks fans because I know some of them who probably feel like they underachieved or they, lost a prime opportunity to go to the finals. people see the Pacers and the Pacers aren't the defending champions Celtics who they beat. So they probably thought and they did have a really good chance of making it to the finals. But in my opinion, I think the Knicks, I wouldn't even say overachieved. I think they properly achieved this year. Their roster on paper shows to be a mid-50s win team with an opportunity to make a run at the East. Now, if you put it up against who they played, I think they did overachieve. They beat the Celtics. I think a lot of Knicks fans felt that they weren't going to beat the Celtics, and they, credit to them, they executed perfectly that series. They won that fair and square. But I think that it's interesting. I don't hate or like the move in general. And I think maybe coaching is a little over exaggerated sometimes, but I don't think he did anything to get fired. But he didn't really necessarily. He's not Eric Spoelstra, right? He didn't really do anything to keep his job either.
Mm-hmm. So the top 5 betting odds. So Johnny Bryant I mentioned plus 240, Kenny Atkinson plus 400. I don't know why the hell he would leave the situation he's in right now. He just won 64 games. Former Hornets coach and current Pelicans assistant coach James Borrego plus 950, Mike Budenholzer plus 950. Again, this would be a really this would be I think if I were Mike Budenholzer, if I were Doc Rivers, I would only want to take jobs in which you would be coaching younger guys and you have zero expectations, because Budenholzer just he was coaching the Bucks and ends up won a championship and then got fired 2 years later, and then joined Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker got fired 1 year later. Patrick Ewing I thought was the funniest one because he was awful at Georgetown, and then you want to bring him in there. And then the last one, Sam Cassell, is also a plus 950 as well. But I don't really know what his mindset is, but it really seems like, and maybe just one of those things where he's he's more so invested in the job he's in right now. But he really seems like he doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to leave at least this year. I do know I think it was the interview with Pat Bev that he said I really do think I'd be a great head coach one day. Which I agree with. It seems, and that's not just us saying it. A lot of people around the league, they always talk about how Cassell is one of the best assistant coaches in the league, but I don't think he's ready to after this year. I think a lot of that does also have to do with his relationship with Jason Tatum as well, which again would be one of the very, very few silver linings of the Tatum injury is that for Cassell to stick around, but I don't know how much of that is it's just me speculating. So, but one more thing. My fellow co-host of the NBA Max podcast and friend of the pod, Ori B, asked, "Is Tom Thibodeau the greatest Knicks head coach post-merger?" Gotta be honest, I don't really know of who else would be much better. Mike D'Antoni was there for a couple of years. Fizdale for a couple of years as well. He was better than both of them clearly. Was Mike Woodson was there for a couple of years, I think. I don't know who else. Obviously, I'm only thinking post 2000s, by the way, because I'm not too familiar with who the coaches were in the 70s and the 90s. Those were the other teams that were that great since then. John, I don't know if you're looking that up there, but I don't know who the coaches were in the 70s and the 90s for the Knicks. But I could only imagine that at the very least, that Budenholzer is at the very least a top 5 coach of all time for the Knicks, if not top 3.
70s, Willis Reed, Red Holzman.
Okay, let's see.
Red Holzman twice actually, so they have fired and rehired. Hubie Brown in the 80s. Okay, and Rick Pitino in the late 80s, who also said he's not interested in returning to the NBA, which I don't blame him. He's doing good things at St. John's. Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff Van Gundy was 96 to 2001. I think that was probably the best years that the Knicks had, at least recently. So let's see the best win percentage. How about this? Let's look at this. So Pat Riley from 91 to 95. Red Holzman from 67. That's pre-merger for the most part. Van Gundy 96 to 01. Woodson 12 to 14. Don Nelson only 95, 96. That was only for part of the season. So I would say Pat Riley is probably number 1, and then honestly and then 2, 3 maybe tie between Thibodeau and Jeff Van Gundy. So, but Yeah. Shout out. Yeah, I don't know what Thibodeau's plans are next. He honestly might just retire. But then again, 67 isn't really that old, and NBA coaches' ages. But who knows? Yeah, knowing the NBA, he'll probably be out of the league for 2 years, and then some other random team will pick him up 2 years later. But we'll see about that. Cool. All right, we can move on to the next segment. So yeah, we can. Yeah, I guess we'll move on to tonight. So tonight starts Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Game 1 is tonight. Game 2 is on Sunday. I believe the Game 3 is on Wednesday. I want to say, and then maybe Game 4 is Saturday. Probably there's maybe I don't even know. Yeah, like it's something like that. Game 4 might even be on a Sunday, but yeah, lots to think about. I did write my article on Primetime Sports Talk breaking down the NBA Finals and what each team needs to do to win, and my overall prediction. But before we do all that, it's very clear that the Thunder are their overwhelming favorites. Last I checked, they were minus 700 to win the finals, which I think is 700 odds are very scary. But that being said, like it usually not always, like it usually is pretty telling as to which team is going to win. So John, how about I don't know if you want to just I don't know if you want to break down your thoughts on the series, or if you want to answer the question of what exactly has to go wrong for the Thunder, or what has to go right for the Pacers in order to win the finals. But yeah, just overall, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny when we go back and look at our brackets that we made at the beginning. I think that most of us, I think, had the Pacers beating the Bucks, primarily because of, I think Dame was hurt at that point, right? Or he was done. So we knew it would be tough for the Bucks. So I think we did that. But then right after that, I think we obviously had the Cavs beating the Pacers, and then we had whoever the Knicks and the Celtics were playing beat. We didn't really expect as much of a run from the Pacers. So I think most people, and including us, have doubted them throughout. And, I continue to doubt that they can win this series. But what does it show you? That, that's kind of been the underlying theme for them all the way through. So I think that's something they can rely on, that everyone's kind of doubted them so far. And why, basketball or NBA playoff series are about matchups. It's not necessarily about who's the better team or who's the better team on paper, I should say. We see upsets all the time. And I think another thing for them that they can lean on is just how explosive they are offensively. They are really, really great in transition. If they can create turnovers, which they don't normally do at a high level, but if they do, they get off and running, and it's almost impossible to beat them in transition. They got great guys that can rim run, and they also got great shooters with Tyrese Halliburton kind of controlling the pace. We mentioned, I think we talked about it last week, and we were kind of gushing over him a little bit, and then he had one of the worst games as a point guard that we've seen in the playoffs. But overall, I think he is entering that superstar tier, whether it's top 12 to 15 players in the league. Two relatively deep playoff runs back to back, regardless of how they happened, is nothing to shake your head at. So I do think there's a path here for them. I think step one, they should kind of take it game by game, but step one would be stealing one of these two, putting the pressure a little bit on OKC to where they have to win games on the road now. That being said, we talked about it, and we talked about it through the Cavs series and the Knicks series, how great they are in transition, how explosive they are on offense. The Thunder are just as explosive on offense and just as great in transition. And on top of all of that, they're an elite defensive team. So the big catch of the Pacers is that they really struggled defensively, and they actually played decent defense against the Knicks in that series for the most part. But overall, if there was one thing they struggle with, it's that defense. And OKC has them beat in every single category there. They're an elite defensive team. They switch on and off. They have elite defenders. They have, their superstars. SGA, he defends. That's a huge piece. And NBA Finals matchups are usually a little different. And we've seen them play in the regular season. It's not going to be the same. And and I'm excited to watch. I think it's going to be an exciting series in terms of just like pure basketball. I think there's going to be a lot of flying up and down the court. There's going to be, it's two teams we haven't seen in the finals in a very, very long time. And I'm very excited. I do think, I'm not going to I'm sure we'll do predictions later, but I think if you're OKC, you really just got to handle your business. It might be a little daunting sometimes for teams who are heavily favored in a series. But like you saw with the Celtics last year, they were heavily favored against the Mavs. In terms of Vegas, I know all the talking heads love to try to lean towards the Mavs, and now it's like the easy. Now the narrative is that it was an easy matchup. But if you're the Thunder, you got to prevent Indiana from taking one of these next two games at home. And that's all Indiana's trying to do. They're not trying to win the series in one game. They're trying to steal one of these games. And if the Thunder kind of, protect home court and win these two, then the pressure's all on Indiana to win game 3.
That's for sure. So definitely agree with you there. The main thing is that just take it game by game. And that's what happens with these upsets. Usually, it's not a matter of like who punches who falls down first. It's a matter of just like chipping away. Like I thought at first that like the Pacers are gonna have to set the tone from the beginning, but I don't necessarily think that. I think it's actually, I wouldn't be surprised if OKC blows them out tonight, and then Indiana comes back on game 2 and like surprises them. So, but saw a graphic that like the other day, like I forgot to send it over to the computer so I could share with it. But basically, it's like a graphic of like so the y-axis is basically chess, the height, so like the up and down, and then the offensive productions to the is on the x-axis. So. And essentially, a lot. Obviously, the Thunder have the more talented roster, but the Pacers are almost like the Thunder-esque as far as it goes for talent, because Chet and Miles Turner are very similar players in the sense that they're both stretch bigs. They're both like stretch bigs who also are two of the best rim defenders in the league. Obviously, Turner's like obviously not as good as Chet's as far as it goes for actual rim defender, but I do think that Turner is almost as good as a shot blocker though. But then both teams also have traditional bigs. The Thunder have I-Hart, but the Pacers have both Thomas Bryant and Tony Bradley as well. And that doesn't stop there. They also have like other tall wings-ish / stretch bigs that includes Jalen Williams on Jay Will on the Thunder and Obi Toppin on the Pacers. And then if you go further down the depth chart, there's wing depth, which includes Benedict Mathurin. Who's that? Walker, Aaron Wiggins, who are these some other players that I'm not too familiar with. And then they also have the defensive stoppers, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, Alex Caruso, and Lou Dort. And then the bottom left, there's a reserve guard, so that's TJ McConnell, Isaiah Joe, and Cason Wallace. I do think the Cason Wallace is a little better, is a lot better than those guys though. And then obviously the top 4 guys, the second bananas in Pascal Siakam and J-Dub, and then the 2 offensive engines, 2 of the debatably the 5 best offensive engines in the league, in Shea and Halliburton. So, yes, the Thunder are obviously the better team, but if you just go through it piece by piece, they're very similar in the sense of how their roster is constructed, even if the Thunder are have the much better depth. So, yeah, as far as it goes for what the Pacers have to do in order to win, outside of just chipping apart, I do think that it's going to take some cold nights from J-Dub and from Chet as well. Obviously, that's been the X factor since the beginning of the playoffs, and they've been awesome. But it happens all the time in NBA history to where players go on these awesome runs throughout the playoffs, and then they totally blow it in the finals. It happened with the Celtics in 2022. It happened with the who am I thinking about? It happened with the Mavs last year. It happened with the Heat in 2020 and 2023. So. Yeah, young teams can prove people wrong, which they look. I wouldn't necessarily say that we were proved wrong. Yes, I did pick the Clippers to beat the Thunder, but that's because I thought that was a matchups thing. That wasn't I don't think the Thunder have enough in them, because I definitely do think they have enough in them. But there is a world where because that's another. There is a world where like Rick Carlisle and Pascal Siakam's experience does find a way to what's the word out execute the Thunder, because Mike Danault, a phenomenal head coach, but he's pretty young as well. Although he has been coaching for years at this point, I do think he was hired in 2020. Only reason I know that is that's because when it was when I made the All American Hooper Twitter accounts. It was right around that's when the Thunder finally hired a head coach because it was the very shortened off season. So that's what happened there. So yeah, this is his 5th overall season. But this is going to end up being a pretty short pod tonight. But do you have anything else you want to add either to my thoughts or anything else regarding the series? Because obviously there's a lot that can go into, but it's going to be interesting either way for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a good series. I do want to talk about it seems like a lot of people, or the going narrative, that nobody wants to watch this finals because it's not a big market team. I think that's the most ridiculous thing ever. I like if the Celtics aren't playing, I prefer this kind of series over any. I don't need a big market team. It's so exciting. It's 2 young teams from small markets. It's not. I know it's different for baseball. A lot of you're seeing it more now with baseball. A lot of these big time players are going to big market teams, and that's where the money is. But with basketball, it's pretty cool, and I think that this is why I like the NBA so much, is that star players can either get drafted to these small market teams or get traded to these small market teams like SGA, the Pacers with Halliburton. These are 2 teams, and it's another league with the salary cap. So these are 2 teams that did not buy their way to their success. The Thunder have won 68 games this year in the regular season, and they did that purely based on roster construction. They've drafted well. They've traded draft picks the right way. They traded Paul George for this slew of picks. And nowadays, if you told me today that SGA got traded for Paul George straight up, SGA is like 2 times the player Paul George is now. I know it's different with like primes and stuff, but
right.
Both of these teams constructed their roster in the right way, but they got here in different ways too, which is pretty cool. The Thunder have been the overwhelming favorites in the West in the NBA to win the finals, and the Pacers were in most people's eyes at best a second round exit. And I think people expected the Pacers to lose in the first round last year. So the Pacers have made 2 deep playoff runs when they've been pretty much neglected or just tossed aside as a potential championship team. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. If you're a true basketball fan, if you're a true basketball junkie, you're excited for this. That's with the exception of Knick fans who are basketball fans. They probably, maybe they can enjoy the hate watch, and for them, I'm sure they're hoping the Thunder sweep.
Do not blame them at all.
But they both these teams. I mean, I know we talk about SGA's foul baiting a lot. That's frustrating, but both of these teams play a really exciting brand of basketball, and I'm just excited for them to kind of duke it out here.
That's for sure. Yeah, the whole complaint. I don't know how it became a thing where people complain about ratings. There's not a single thing I care about less in basketball than ratings. The NBA just signed a 10-year deal with NBC. They're making a lot of money. Whether people are watching or not for the next 10 years, they will be fine. And not saying they don't have to appeal to the casual fan. They do have to appeal to the casual fan. But as for now, we've had a tough couple finals. Obviously, we enjoyed last year's finals, but let's be honest. Since the end of Golden State, we haven't really had everyone was excited once KD left Golden State that we were going to finally have good finals. 2020 Lakers won in 6, but it was over after game 2. Everyone knew that they were going to beat the Heat. 2021 was a really good finals. Bucks beat the Suns. 2022 Warriors beat the Celtics. That was a pretty good finals, even if we didn't enjoy it. It's 2023, not a good finals at all. The Nuggets were sunned the Heats, and then and then last year the Celtics beat the Mavs in 5. But what was that? Two of those 5 games were competitive. Maybe 3 out of those 5. But yeah, so that's the issue there. Yikes. I think you know what I'm yikesing, but yeah. Yeah. Who's pitching now?
Reed Garrett.
Oh, yeesh. Okay, good because or not good, but like I almost sent a stat in today about Reed Garrett and how insane he's been. I think he has like a +5. He's like a 5. He's like a 5.20 something ERA plus. So
he's been great, but I think he pitched yesterday.
Did he? Okay, yeah, that makes yeah. It's There's no perfect formula to managing a bullpen, but it feels like every manager ever seems to mismanage them. But that's what happens. What were we talking about? Yeah, just finals in general. But yeah, I'm very excited for this finals. Yeah, we can definitely. Yeah, I say we can give our predictions now. I think both of us made it really clear who we think are going to win. But John, why don't you also talk about who you think is going to win and how they're going to win it?
So my official prediction is Thunder in 6. I do think that the Pacers steal 1 of 2 on the road here. Like you said, I could see it being Thunder win comfortably tonight, and then the Pacers steal 1 game 2. But then I think so it goes 2-2, 1-1-1, right? So I think. I'm just trying to think about how. So 2 OKC, 5 would be in OKC, and 6. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would see them splitting the first 2, and then the Thunder going on the road and winning. Sorry, I can't believe I can't do mental math with 5 games here. So I think, it goes OKC, Indiana, and then okay.
So
okay.
Yeah. So
okay. OKC, Indiana, and then they split the
series in Indiana too. The 2 games in Indiana, you're going to say they're going to split, and then
and then I think OKC wins game 5 at home, and then they close out game 6 in Indiana.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I was trying to do
all good. Yeah, all good. Yeah, and I zoned out there for a second too. So that's not a bad picture at all. It seems to be pretty consensus that a lot of people think the Thunder are going to win in 6. So Dan Greenberg of Barstool Sports said that he thinks that this year's finals reminds him a lot of last year's finals in the sense that the Pacers are an overachieving team and the Thunder are this super house like team that hasn't done anything yet, or not done anything, but like hasn't gotten to the top yet, like the Celtics last year. I think this series far reminds me more of last year's Pacers versus Celtics series actually. Except that it's a series further. The Pacers are a very fast-paced. They're 2 of the best offenses in the league. They're both extremely fast-paced. As I mentioned, I went through every single like part of the game. They both have an elite offensive engine. They both have stretch bigs who can shoot. They both have 2 of the best second options in the league. I would say I made the list over the summer, but I definitely think that. I'm pretty sure that I had Siakam inside my top 10. I think I had J-Dub. I think I had both J-Dub and Siakam in my top 10. Actually, I'm actually pretty sure that I had J-Dub as my third option. Actually, now that I said that out loud. But yeah, 2 of the best second options in the league, both greatly coached. I think Dane Ott is a top 3 coach in the league. I think that's Carlisle is top 5 in some games. Maybe, and I wouldn't surprise me if there are certain games that he would outcoach Spoelstra in. So they're very similar in the sense of that. The big difference though is the defense. The Pacers, and I was going to say execution, but both teams execute really well down the stretch. But the big difference is going to be the defense. And I think that because both teams are very fast paced and they both have great offensive engines and all the ingredients that I just listed off. But at the end of the day, I am going to think that the Thunder are going to close out in 5, and that's because I think that the Thunder are going to snag 1 game. They're going to just they're going to score the lights out, and then the Pacers are going to do nothing about it. I also think that there's going to be 1 game where the Thunder completely fall asleep, and like they're going to be very confident they're going to lose one of those games. I don't know if it's going to be game 3 or game 4. But then I also think that at least two of the other games are going to be very close, in which the Thunder closed out because they're just the clearly more talented team. And yeah, this is no order, by the way, but like I think that we're gonna have at least 2 very close games and at least 1 blowout on each side. So and then the other game, it's gonna be either a blowout, either like maybe not even a blowout, or like maybe it's kind of like game 1 of last year of the last year the finals, where it was a blowout for certain points of the game, but then the Mavs crawled back to a little bit, and then it was blow up by the end of the game. But yeah, my prediction, yeah, Thunder in 5, with a couple close games there, a couple blowouts, and 1 CTE game from the Thunder.
Yeah, I think Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets kind of made us forget for a little bit there how good the Thunder are.
Yeah.
You know, they took them to 7, and they really had an opportunity to knock them off. But you saw it more last series in the Western Conference Finals, how dominant they are. The Timberwolves were a really good team. They were playing great basketball, and just didn't really even stand a chance. It wasn't really even close down the stretch. So, yeah, I think it's like the easy pick to pick the Thunder here, and that's what we are, and most of us are going with. But hey, I mean, people have doubted the Pacers all year. They play a fun, high octane level of basketball, especially on the offensive side. You know, if they can steal one and, you know, dictate momentum here in the series, you never know.
Absolutely. And yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah, so yeah, we have Thunder in 5 and Thunder in 6. Yeah, I should have texted Matt ahead of time, but I'm assuming he has the same thing. Either 5 or 6. Yeah, maybe they didn't, like I saw a couple people picking sweep, which is not out of the possibility, but not as fun though. But yeah, we'll know.
We didn't. Your prediction was right last Thursday.
What was it?
The Knicks Pacers series? How it was going to go?
Oh yeah.
Knicks won 5 at home, and the Pacers won in 6 on their home.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to take too much of a victory left there, because my predictions have been pretty brutal this the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't even want to look back at what my bracket looked like, because it was
because you know what it was is that I was too inconsistent with picking with my head versus picking with my heart. I picked with my head for the Lakers series. It's actually the opposite of that. It's that I picked with my heart too much on both sides of it, actually, because I was hate watching the Lakers, but then I said, like, you know what, like the Lakers are going to be able to do X, Y, and Z, and that's without a center somehow, which was ridiculous. Like I was gaslit into thinking that this Lakers team had a chance. Michael Porter, Jesus Christ. So
most obvious outcome ever.
Yeah. So yeah. So what is that? So, Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, let's just do this mailbag and get it over with, so we can both sulk over the Mets and then watch the finals later. But yeah, the mailbag. Yeah, like I tweeted out the mailbag a little bit later last night than last time, so didn't get as many reviews. One of them is actually an in-person mailbag. I'll explain who that was in a second. But first one is from fellow co-host Matt Driscoll. He couldn't make it tonight, so we figured he'd participate in the mailbag. So I guess we'll do the first one, which he wrote number 2, but the first one we'll do our favorites non-Celtics finals. There's a couple of them that come to mind, but I don't really there's none that jump.
Top 3?
We can do top 3. Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. I think number 1 on the list for me might be the 2011 finals. It was the peak of my hatred towards LeBron. I was 12 years old, and he had just been. He hadn't been the Celtics yet. This was it was but like this was like just when like the whole like not 1, not 2, not 3 thing really bothered me. And then Dirk Nowitzki was one of my favorite players in the league. And then just watching the Heat become villains in our eyes. Like little did we know, like LeBron was about to become the GOAT, or like the first or second best player right after that. But I was pretty happy during that series.
Yeah, that was the first one that came to my mind is Mavs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's awesome because, D Wade and LeBron were kind of like jerks throughout that whole series. They were making fun of Dirk for being sick or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the easy one that comes to my mind. I did enjoy watching. I mean, I feel like this is all just going to turn into like which finals do you hate watching the most?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I did enjoy seeing the Nuggets pack up the Heat in 5.
True. Yeah.
that was a good one. There's a couple in the 2010s that kind of just flow together that I can't really.
Well,
It was pretty much just like LeBron versus the Spurs, and then LeBron versus the Warriors.
Warriors, yeah. So it was 13 through 18 was Spurs/Warriors, and then 12 was OKC, and then 19 was the Raptors. That was a pretty good series, actually. We have the outcome, but yeah, I always wonder. Like I think about legacy more than most people, but like I always wonder like what would have happened. Like what would we think of Kawhi Leonard had the shot had like the bouncer shot not gone in, and the Sixers won in overtime? Like what Kawhi, like, because like then Kawhi Leonard had one of the best playoff runs from the conference finals to the finals ever. So that one I'm always curious about.
I mean, objectively speaking, the Bucks Suns finals was awesome too.
That was awesome. Yeah,
the outcome, but that was a great series.
Pretty sure that we were at bar for game one, actually, of that final. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even if we're like removing our fandom from it, like we're just talking, this is taking the question in a different direction. It's not our favorite, but like the best ones, like 2016 was probably one of the best finals.
Yeah.
The Heat Spurs, I think from 2013 was one of the best finals.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of the good ones are ones that we didn't necessarily love, but
exactly. Yeah.
It's an interesting question.
Yep, thanks for sure. And then if we really want to go historical, if we want to go historical here, I guess you could also say the 90s. Yeah, like we didn't watch any of the 90s Bulls, so like, but if we're talking all time, but if we're talking about personal favorite, that really wouldn't qualify. But and then the personal favorite finals moments, which obviously we have a ton of those from last year, but we can we kind of did this. We kind of did this last year, the day after the Celtics won the finals. But we have a handful of favorite moments within. I also have a couple others to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, from last year, there's so many. The Peyton Pritchard half court shot lives rent free in my mind.
Yes.
Probably the most fun moment I've had in our living room. We were with a great group. It was a lot of fun. Underrated moment, the JB mid-range jump shot in Game 3, I believe, with like under a minute left, was awesome. I'm trying to think if there was.
My two personal favorites happened from Game 1. One of them was the Porzingis block shots. He had like just hit a three beforehand, and then it was I think it was Josh Green who like stole the ball, was going in. Green said, I forgot the lyrics, the words, like the script exactly, but it was like, here comes Green, one man to beat, but it's a 7-footer, like who blocks it again? It was which I know a lot of Celtics fans, including myself, is unfortunately looking at the Porzingis tenure as Celtics as kind of a failure because he just played so few playoff games with us. But the game one of the finals was unbelievable, and that's something I'm never gonna forget. And then, of course, in addition to Porzingis, is also Horford's dunk. A dunk right off the bat was insane.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this one from unfortunately a finals the Celtics lost in 2022. Game 1, coming down from double digits in the fourth quarter, Al Horford hit a 3 to tie the game up. All the ladies in the house say Al. That is.
Oh yeah.
That was a great finals moment. Yeah. Unfortunately, not too many after that, but
and then I wish I was old enough to appreciate 2008 as well. That was but like the Celtics were down like 20 something points. I don't know if it was over 20, but it was definitely like at least 15. Which like blown leads weren't common at all back then, but like they like stormed back inside the Staples Center in Game 4 of the Game 4 to put them up 3-1, which again that was like a nail in the coffin at the time, and Ray Allen had like 7 threes in that game. So that's definitely one of the moments, and of course anything is possible as well. So those are very easy moments to pick apart for favorite moments. Next one is from friend of the pod. I had dinner with him last night. Friend of the pod, Mike Korzemba. I put him on the spot. I said, we're doing Mailbag tomorrow night. What are your thoughts? He's like, okay. So he just said, very good one on the spot. Obviously, content creator come up with that. He said, how many rings do you think the Thunder win in the next 5 years?
5 years. Ooh, that's a good question. Counting this one, I am going to say stuck between. I would say 2.
I would say 2 as well,
with the potential of 3. But the problem is with this, I don't think they're going to be able to keep the core together for as long as 5 years.
No, they're not. So, but the thing is that they're very lucky to where they drafted Chet and J-Dub early enough to where they're not going to get obviously the Celtics got lucky enough with the second apron to where like they didn't have to pay both JB and Tatum until next year. Which like this is why like this year would have been their window to win. But yeah, so the Thunder are gonna have like a bit more wiggle room because of the younger guys. But once like the money hits for Shea, now once the money hits for J-Dub, since he made an All-NBA team, and once Chet either makes an All-NBA team or maybe even snags the depoy if he plays an entire season, they're gonna get screwed over for sure. So my answer would be 2, because I think we're living in an era now to where the super team era, like, I wouldn't say it's dead, because there's usually at least one super team in a decade. So maybe it is the Thunder for the end of the 2020s. Who knows? But yeah, I'll say 2 to be safe, because who knows? Maybe the Cavs or someone else comes back next year and finds a way to snag them off.
Yeah, I could see them going back to back. But you really never know. There's going to be so many trades this offseason. Everything's going to look so different.
Yeah. We'll talk. Yeah. And that's the wild thing about it. We talked about it in the chat yesterday, and I made a video on it. I'm not ready to see Al Horford go, and he's gonna. It sounds like he's gonna walk, even if it sounds like he's not gonna retire, which I really wish he was gonna retire, because I don't want him to retire as a Celtic. But
I just don't see him going to another team and having like a similar impact. Like I just think like
me neither. I was going through teams with my co-teacher yesterday, who's a Knicks fan, and we were both saying, so he's one of the best backup centers in the league right now. I really think like the only 2 teams that like came to mind as to where he could play like his role in now and still be very effective are the Nuggets and the Thunder. No, not the Thunder. The Nuggets and the Clippers, actually. They both have like they're both very different centers, but Zubac is one of the best defenders in the league, and then Al Horford would just be the guy to like eat up minutes in the regular season. So, but yeah, like maybe one of those teams. I really hope it's not the Knicks. But that being said, like I don't know how much cap space the Knicks have next year, or because at the end of the day, like I don't know which team is going to pay Al Horford more than $10 million, because like I don't know. Like I'm thinking that the Celtics aren't going to pay him more than the minimum because of the way money is working, like how tight money is right now. But I also don't know. I'm throwing like the loyalty to Boston thing out the window just because like I don't think that's really a thing anymore unless unless they've been there for so long. But like as far as it goes for playing time, I think he'll get just as much playing time in Boston as he would anywhere else. Money, Celtics can't offer that, unfortunately. And winning a championship, unfortunately, Celtics don't have that to offer next year. They do, but like it's less likely than if you were to go to Denver or to if the Cavs trade Jared Allen, maybe they get maybe them for less money, but I don't know. If you were to leave the Celtics, my bet would be the Thunder, but I also don't. Again, I don't know. Like I don't know if he wants to move it west. Maybe he does want to stay in the East. Maybe back to the Hawks. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if Tatum's if he wasn't hurt next year, they would find a way to bring him back.
Yes.
Because I think the Celtics are at their best when Al Horford's on the roster. But again, the money is the big concern here. If you're not he is a great 6th, 7th guy.
Yes.
But without Tatum and without Porzingis and potentially without Drew, you don't really know what you're going to get back from either of those guys.
Right.
Al Horford could essentially be like your 4th best player.
Right. Which you can't ask from someone who just turned 39.
Right. And he's most likely not going to play back-to-backs.
Right.
It's just they're not in a good position to offer him. And I mean, hey, hopefully he takes the minimum and he loves Boston, but if he's looking to contend for a championship, then
he just replied to their tweet the other day, their happy birthday tweet. So like I thought that meant something, but then that per sources account, which like seems like a legit account, came out with that report. So I was like, damn, like Yeah, like they really got us there. But I don't. But I don't know. Like,
be looking for a reset to get under that apron with no Tatum. You know, we're not really going to know until July what their real intentions are.
I think we're going to know the day after the finals end. I think that some trade is going to go down, maybe like whether it's the Celtics or not. But I think that's I think that once the finals ends, I think all the trades are gonna fall in real quick, because like free agency isn't really big anymore. So like I think the teams are going to be really eager to make some trades.
Yeah.
So who knows there? And yeah, last mailbag of the day comes from friend of the pod and my fellow column writer Drew Fitzpatrick. We won't spend a ton of time on this question, I have a feeling, but like it is a little interesting. I didn't really look at the stats really for this, but is Tim Duncan a better finals performer than LeBron James? I have the numbers right here. It looks like. Let me just scroll up real quick. Are there any averages right here? No, it doesn't look like.
I
scroll up all the way.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. But like, yeah, I'm trying to find the exact stats. So
I have them right here.
Okay, yeah. So LeBron averages 28, 10, and 8 in the finals. So, I know for a fact that Duncan doesn't average that, but
Duncan averages 20 or 21, 13, and 2.
Yeah. Oh, only 2 assists. She's
But you can say better defense overall.
Yeah, for sure. But
LeBron wasn't exactly a slouch defensively in the earlier years.
No, and yeah, like it's LeBron James at the end of the day. Like I understand that 5-1 is better than 4-6, but LeBron has more Finals MVPs than Duncan. And had to play. Like I don't even know. I guess outside of LeBron's Heat, I guess the best team that Duncan had to face in the finals, would it have been so 99 they played was it the Knicks or was it the Pacers? The Knicks. It was the Knicks, right? Yeah, they played the Knicks in 99, and then in 03 they played the Nets, and then in 05 they played the Pistons, I think. Yes.
05 they played Detroit. Yeah.
Yeah, 05 they played the Pistons. 07 they played the Cavs.
The best team they played was the
Heat. Yeah, and after that it was the Pistons, I think, probably. Although like that was at the end of the what do you call it, days? That was the end of the that was the end of the Ben Wallace days. Yeah, sorry for the pause there. That was the end of the Ben Wallace days, unfortunately. But yeah, it's like Tim Duncan is one of the best players of all time. Like what makes I always say, like what makes Tim Duncan so great, what makes him a top 10 player isn't his overall dominance, it's the consistency of elite play and winning and elite defense for so long. It's not that he was the best player in the league for the longevity portion of LeBron has, or like what Jordan has. Tim Duncan, I think, just outside the top 5. Some people have him at 5 on the dots. But yeah, like I would say, yeah, I have him at 7 personally. I think that's like one of the highest. I think that's probably the highest you can have mine. Honestly, like I think 5 is when you start to push a little bit. Like yeah, I think top 10 player, but LeBron is on another tier or 2 ahead of him, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really just no disrespect towards Tim Duncan. It's just one of the best, one of the best player performers of all time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get to end the pod before the Mets lost. But or is it more fortunate? Actually, is the question that we
it was a brutal loss.
Yeah, it was a little brutal, but that's okay. On the other hand, I will give a shout out. Actually, let's on the pod on good news. My roommate Steven Bonanno just got a promotion at his job. So,
congrats, Steve.
Yeah, he's watched a handful of episodes, actually, believe it or not, even though he doesn't know the first thing about basketball. So yeah, that proves what a guy he is. Yeah, that's absolutely. So, all right, cool. Well, tip off is in an hour and a half or 2 hours. But between the Thunder and the Pacers, we're all very excited. We will be back next week, probably at our regular time. We'll probably go back to our 8 o'clock time because Game 3 is on Wednesday. So we'll see what happens there. But regardless, this has been another episode of the All American Hoops podcast. Check out my additional content. We will be back on Sunday nights with NBA Max, 10 p.m. Check out my column on PrimeTimeSports.com. Basically everything that I wrote down, like everything that I said here, put on words. If you want to take a look at that in my column, Follow me on all my social media platforms at All American Hooper on TikTok and at All American Hooper on Instagram with the zeros instead of O's, and at American Hooper on Twitter. John, as always, pleasure as always. But as per usual, hope everyone has a great night and keep grinding, stay hooping. Have a good night, everyone.
Oh, Canada.
Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother.
It means nothing. It means nothing.
No, they lying to you. It's about the money.
Now you're more fluent.